Welcome to the 15th edition of Doc NYC. My name is Hannah Timon. I'm the film office manager at Doc NYC. It's my pleasure to introduce Light, Darkness, Light, directed by Landon Van Soest. The film is having its North American premiere at Doc NYC and is part of our U.S. competition section at this year's festival. It's also eligible for the festival's audience award, so after the screening, please rate the film by following the instructions on your ticket stub or by scanning the audience award QR codes that are on poster boards outside the auditorium. Before the film begins, we'd like to first thank our major sponsors, A&E Indie Films, Apple Original Films, HBO Documentary Films, and Netflix, our supporting sponsors, Hulu and National Geographic Documentary Films, and our leading media sponsor, 13, and our major media sponsor, Variety. Today's screening is also co-presented by IndieWire, who is presenting the U.S. competition section at this year's festival. We're very fortunate to have the film director with us today, so I'd love to welcome him to the stage for a quick introduction. Please welcome Landon Van Soest.
Thank you all so much for coming. This has been a true labor of love for a small army of people over damn near a decade, so it's really thrilling for us to be able to be here and share it with you. I hope you'll stick around after, and we're going to do a Q&A and talk a little bit more about the film, so I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much.
As Landon said, please remain in your seats after the film for a Q&A. Lastly, I'd just like to thank our staff, crew, and venue teams for making Doc NYC possible once again this year. The festival is running in person through November 21st and online through December 1st. So please visit our website to browse the full program, get your tickets, and learn more about everything we're doing in the world of documentary film. Please enjoy Light, Darkness, Light.
Jo Budzilowicz, got you all. Here's the microphone. Of course, go ahead.
I would just love to send a huge thank you. I mean, my absolute favorite part of filmmaking is being able to collaborate and work with people that I admire. 3 of them are standing next to me. There are a lot more of you out there, and so many people contributed to bringing this to screen. I would love for anybody who played a role to just stand up for a second. Could you please do that for me? There were a lot of you out there.
Beautifully said for a beautiful film. I have a lot of questions. I'm going to ask a few, then I'm going to open it up to the audience, so be ready. A powerful, intimate journey that you're on with Ian. How did you begin? What was the start? Take us back to the beginning.
Yeah, well, like I said at the beginning, I mean, it goes back over a decade. I heard, a story about just experiments that were being done, putting electrodes into blind people's brains, that they were just starting to be able to stimulate some vision of light, some degree of light. And it just immediately, sent my head in so many different directions of what that would be like, and just a lot of the, philosophy behind that, and these kind of deep questions that it raised, and of course, just the fun of trying to reimagine what that experience would be like to see the world again after, decades without vision. I wrote a terrible fictional script, but I kind of went back to that and, started to do some research and thought I might be able to improve it, but realized in that process that the FDA had just approved this implant, and that it actually could be possible to tell the story through a documentary, which is my entire background and anything that I've ever done. So really it was kind of just decided. But I connected with the surgeon in the film first, who was just getting ready to start the trial, and through that met Ian, and just really what a gift, I think. I mean, he was, in my mind, just about the least likely person to submit himself to a sort of cutting edge medical trial or something that was very unproven, very experimental, and I think from there we were just kind of on the ride with him.
You mentioned, which is kind of a surprise to me, that you're always into the philosophy of it. You start the film with the George Edelman quote and all these things. Was that always the outlook? Did you feel like you were going the deep science route, or what really is the core of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it sort of, it triggered so many things just as, anybody who's sort of a visual artist, or just sort of the idea of what it would be like to see again, or to experience the world again in a different way, just, opens so many possibilities. And I think I really, was excited about the idea of doing a bit more of kind of expressionistic, storytelling, and trying to do some of those reimaginings. And I think that it's just, it's so much fun to kind of talk about the science. I think I've been very into the kind of, it probably shows I'm very, into reading Oliver Sacks and the kind of pop science TED Talk kind of thing. But I think because it really has a very human connection, that it really directly impacts lives, and I think gives a lot of perspective on the way that we all experience the world and then experience our own lives. So a lot of different ways that I could take that, but I think just because of that, there was so much fodder there in my mind that I just couldn't step away from it.
I imagine a few people up here have answers to this one, but obviously the visual experience here, can we go through both the process? Is it listening to Ian, he tells you things, and also how do you create things? Is it just you plug in a VHS and record all the scrambles that come up, or how do you make this all happen? And how do you actually coordinate the vision of incorporating it into film?
I'm going to say one quick thing and hand it off to Paul, because Paul is to credit for so much of that. I had seen early some kind of tests that were done with depth sensor cameras and animation that people were doing along those lines.
James George is over there.
Oh, hey James. James pioneered all of that, so we're very lucky to have him here. But I kind of showed some of that to Paul and said, do you think we can do this?
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess stupidly said yes. I hadn't used it before, but I think a lot of the stuff I do is trying to, get out of my comfort zone and explore visuals that I don't know how to make, and trying to stumble my way to making something. But yeah, I mean, it's inherent in filmmaking. It is just perception and how you play with perception, and I think it's just an obvious thing to be attracted to as a visual artist and a filmmaker, is to try to represent the blind experience. I think it's a touchy subject, but I think given that this is about the technology that enables it, rather than just trying to simulate it without that part, just trying to simulate someone's kind of whatever experience without, that's just in their mind's eye, I think could be disingenuous. So I think we had maybe a little liberty, building technology and then using technology to create the visuals. So the film is about technology, and we use these depth sensors and hack together kind of a way to go out in the field and not shoot with real cameras, but to shoot with something that basically projects a bunch of light dots into the, James, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially it's like shooting out a bunch of almost like a remote control device. It just shoots out a bunch of infrared dots and determines what's close to camera, what's far from camera. So it was not like a typical camera that was shooting that stuff. So I felt like, I don't know, more justified, I guess, using that kind of experimental technology to illustrate another experimental technology. But we wanted, it is synthetic, but it's being passed through this kind of organic filter, and it is about how does the brain make sense of something that is a totally foreign way of seeing. So we wanted to kind of balance something that felt really artificial and digital with something that felt really organic and maybe believable to some degree.
And you certainly succeeded at that. There's alongside of these visuals that are really impressive, you have beautiful music, beautiful cinematography. There's a lot of pieces in this puzzle. I'm curious how you guys came up with the act structure, and what was the approach to that, and how did that bring it all together?
The structure?
Added question.
Oh yeah, thanks.
We just did it once, and then we were done.
So I've worked with Landon before in another film for Akeem, and I actually cut my feature doc, cut my teeth on that as a feature doc. So that was my first experience of editing documentary in a feature length, and I learned very quickly how much narrative storytelling matters to Landon. And so looking through all these interviews with Ian and with Jean and with all the doctors, we were looking for moments that helped to carry each scene forward. So we were looking for narrative dialogue, essentially, and we were looking for like what's going to move the story forward in that way. And you know, Ian's interviews are like 4 hours long, and we had to. He's a really wonderful man. He's very reserved though, emotionally, and so we had to like pull out and interpret these lines that he would give us in those interviews, like, I had a dream that I could see perfectly normally. And we just used that one line out of maybe an hour of footage to then explore this whole idea of perception and hope and his dreams. So there was a lot of that, but structurally we were very focused on like a narrative storytelling versus like interview.
Last thing on my end, so please be ready. Obviously it's about sight. There's a lot of sound here that's very well crafted and particularly placed. How important was that for you to include, especially, you know, at the beginning, we're getting into his world, we're building all those little elements of how he experiences the world. Can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. I think that what I've really tried to do in kind of all of my projects is create an experience that's truly immersive. And I think that, you know, always kind of gone back to that adage that sound is more important than image. You know, we have long sequences in the film that are black, and they're some of my favorite parts of the film because it really is just, you know, looking at the most minimal amounts of information that we can give you and the way that we can kind of elevate that. I mean, again, I'm sure it's somewhat obvious, had some very strong themes kind of from the sci-fi world, and I think going in, I was just, you know, this sounds and feels like science fiction. You know, we're telling a true story, but I want it to be right up there with, you know, looking at Tarkovsky or something along those lines, you know. So I think, you know, Francis is an amazing sound designer, did a lot of that in the edit, and I think really elevated a lot of those scenes in ways that I wouldn't have imagined, honestly. Is John Morris here? No, John absent? Anyway, we then obviously had an amazing sound designer that came in, kind of punched a lot of that up at the end of the mix, but yeah, I think that's, you know, I think we tried as much as possible to let kind of the emotion drive, and I think steer as much of that as we could through the sound design, and obviously had a phenomenal score. Jay Wadley and Dominic Mecki did just a phenomenal job, so very, very happy to that end as well.
All right, audience, okay, I see a hand here. Is there one behind that? Okay, cool.
Beautiful work, guys. You know, amazing to see it as well. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, but has Ian received the film?
He has.
Could you repeat the question?
Go ahead.
He asked if Ian has seen the film. Ian doesn't avoid those kind of words, so I won't either.
Yeah.
I think the sad truth is just that Ian is not in great health. He was in his late 70s when we started shooting back in 2014. He's in his mid 80s now, and I think COVID really took a toll on him. So he has seen it. I've kind of spoken more with his wife and daughter about it. You know, they're similarly have a very kind of reserved British sensibility, so I haven't gotten a ton of feedback from people. Just that it was very artistic.
All right, yes. Yes, you.
Thank you. So I'm very curious of timeline. You said this took you 10 years to make, but what was the timeline for his journey in the research that was and all the testing that was being done with the device?
It's a good question. I mean, a lot of it happened pretty quickly, honestly. I mean, when we met Ian, like I said earlier, we met him through the surgeon, so we kind of knew already that he was a candidate, and had to go through a tremendous amount of patient confidentiality and all of that to, you know, be able to start shooting. But you know, we started shooting really just a few months before his surgery, so we shot a lot of the film, you know, in those first 3 or 4 months, and obviously the days kind of quickly after were vital, you know, in the way that he was reacting. I think for logistic and financial reasons, we kind of had to step away for a while. Went back and shot a lot more of it, raised significant, the bulk of our funding, I will say, a few years later, so went back and were able to shoot a lot more kind of the aftermath and obviously all of the recreations and everything that we used to create the animation and all of that. So I would say, the bulk of his arc with the device probably happened over the course of, 2 to 3 years, I would say. Yeah.
And did he cease using it when the study lost its funding?
He did. He basically did, and I think, again, it's sort of, it's a little bit delicate because, COVID happened, and I think everybody was kind of in different circumstances, and I think he would always say to me, I just don't leave the house as much as I used to, and I don't really need it in the house. I lived in this house for 30 years, and I just know every square inch of it. So, I think he did kind of step away from it relatively quickly, is the honest answer. Yeah.
Okay, yes, here.
I thought you did such a beautiful job in showing the despair and the disappointment that Ian felt when he wasn't feeling it. Felt it. And I just wanted to know, what was it like for you as you were watching this unfold? I was kind of wondering what you were feeling on the other end.
Despair. I don't know. I mean, I really think it was being sold, and it's fun. I mean, literally 2 or 3 days ago, I saw an article that Elon Musk's Neuralink is basically unveiling something that's very similar. And the verbiage that the journalists are using is exactly the same as it was when I started this. This is a miracle cure. It's going to change hundreds of thousands of people's lives. And I think seeing, I had a hint of that going in. I probably, went along for that ride thinking that it was going to be a way more dramatic change than it ended up being. So, again, as a filmmaker, you're sort of tracking a story or deeply invested in it at that point and kind of get these inklings that, wow, this is not going to be what we thought it was going to be. I, genuinely feel like that made for a much more interesting story. That, the fact that, Ian is a priest, and I think very quickly realized that so much of the story really is about hope and faith. And to see that level of disappointment in something that he was so invested in and watching him process that, I think is the most, meaningful experience that I will take away from making this film. I think he's one of the most truly buoyant and optimistic people that I've ever met. That I just, feel, I'm in awe of the way that he processed and handled that. And I think he maintained until the very final days that if he played a role in, pushing forward information and pushing forward science and knowledge, and if this could be used to help, a younger generation or even move the dial an inch, that it was worth it to him. So I think that it's very, I don't know if I could have kept that level of optimism throughout a process like this, but something that I think, translates for me in just so many different contexts of dealing with trauma and loss and grief, that he was really just kind of heroic through the whole process.
Time for one more. I saw a hand over. Oh, everyone's content? Oh, yeah, in the back. Yes.
Hi, I find it really intriguing that Ian's a priest, and I would assume a priest receiving a bionic eye involves a lot of conversation around God and faith, but there wasn't like a massive presence of God and faith in the film. I was wondering if there was a thought process behind that, or if that's how the narrative presented itself to you.
Just wanted to repeat that. The presence of God and faith in the film, about Ian's relationship to God, considering he's a priest. Was it a deliberate choice, or were there reasons behind that?
Yeah, I think that, just narratively, I think that was probably one of the biggest challenges of how to kind of grapple with that. I guess I would say that my own outlook is very different from Ian's when it comes to that. Like I said, I think that I tried really hard to find sort of the elements that felt relevant to the story that we were telling, how it sort of impacted Ian's outlook. And I think that what common ground I kind of felt through that was, you know, just this deep-seated dedication to faith and to hope. I think that Ian's beliefs, when it kind of comes down to it, you know, felt distracting. And it just felt like another of many rabbit holes that we could have gone down with the story. I think I was much more interested in a lot of the neurology and a lot of the, you know, the way that we process, you know, perceptual input and how we kind of create our concepts of reality. So I tried to stick to that light subject.
Well, we'll have to give you the last word and what you'd like to say about the film, about Ian, and
Tell your friends. Please go ahead. I'd love for Jo to say something.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm vote for the audience awards.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's been very cool to see it on the big screen. It has been a very long journey, both over time and also narratively, and I think grappling with some of the stuff that, you know, it doesn't work the way he expected, there's disappointment. And I think what feels really successful about the film is what we set out to do, which is, I think, to tell a really human story and to tell one that immerses you in this kind of extremely unique experience. No one else has had this experience, but also that comes back to kind of human connection. And it kind of always came back to Gene. You know, I think no matter which road we went down to get there, I think ultimately it came back to what was Ian trying to get back to and what does he have and how does that experience kind of reconnect him to that. So that has been exciting to actually see that on the big screen. Yeah.
It's fun to add also, like we're in a very AI world right now, and it's freaky, and this is freaky in certain ways, but I think the message for me is this love story, and that it's all really about human connection. So if there's any kind of message to take with us, like that kind of human connection is, despite all of this BS that's going on with technology and stuff that's going way over the top, human connection is the most important, so we should always hold on to that.
Can I say one more thing? Oh, no. You go. More acknowledging.
Oh yeah, it was just more of like, well yeah, his journey was like kind of our journey, and it was about being honest to his experience. And the honest reality of science is that it isn't just some like overnight breakthrough, that breakthroughs happen over decades and decades and decades. And he plays a part in that, and it is disappointing that, you know, Argus had to shut down because they couldn't prove to their investors that this is like making the leaps forward that they're expected to. But science, yeah, it takes time, and so hopefully this, I don't know, chips away at no pun intended, I guess, but chips away at you know, helping people down the line, and that the message is that like science is both like a superpower, but there is a grounded reality to it, and we have to like ground our expectations as well.
I just wanted to I don't know what to wrap up, but like this film would not have happened and would not be here without like the extreme resourcefulness and hard work of a lot of people in the documentary group, Stacy, Tom and his guidance, Paul and Francis putting in, you know, way more than you know, I think anyone asked, but especially Landon, like, would not be here, would not be on the big screen, would not, you know, you guys would not have been able to have this experience without him and everything he's put into it. So thank you.
I mean, we're so indebted and grateful to Doc NYC for bringing us here. I mean, it's so special for us to have this kind of homecoming and to be able to celebrate with so many people who worked on the film, you know, so many people who supported it in indirect ways. So we're thrilled to be here, and thank you so much. Thank you personally, Brandon. I know you believed in the film very early on. It means the world to me.
thank you. Like Darkness Light. Amazing film.